Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Disability Horizons TV. Your eyes are not deceiving you. We are not Zec and Mik. We are Alice Evans and Lucy Wood from the lAbled podcast. This week, we have taken over the broadcast. Lord help us. Buckle up. We might be in for a bumpy ride. How are you, Alice? All right?
I'm all right, Lucy. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. It feels very weird.
I was getting very like us recording flashbacks there, where it's hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the lAbled podcast. That's like Lucy's made herself a home. Jeez.
Well, you know, just making a program, isn't it? Really? Yeah. How's your weekend been? All right.
My weekend has not been the relaxing, chilled out weekend that I very much hoped it would be. There have been a lot of children and a lot of dog poo in my weekend this weekend. So, and I have just sat down to record this to discover that my coffee is basically hot brown water because I did not put enough coffee in it. So
Nice.
So, yeah, things are going well for me.
Well, look, everybody, Alice hasn't had her coffee. So today on Disability Horizons TV, we're going to be talking about disability in the home, more specifically adaptations in the home, aren't we, Alice?
Yeah, I think disability in the home sounds a little bit like you know, we're all snails carrying around our disabled houses on our backs because wherever we go, we are the disability in the home.
And we just take them off when we get to the back door as we.
But this is inspired by Lucy's own experience at the minute. It's been a bit of upheaval at the Wood household, hasn't there, Luce?
There has been a little bit. So was it last week? I can't remember. I've slept since. I don't think it was
first week of May. Last week.
I had to go and stay in a Premier Inn for 3 nights just down the road from where I live because I've had a new 3-floor lift put in. The lift I had still works. However, I was told by some engineer that it is the oldest residential lift in Staffordshire, and it is held together with super glue. So when something went wrong with it last November, I rang the council to say, can you come and fix this, please? And they said, yes, of course we can. And then they realised how old it was and when we can't actually find any parts for the lift. So if you get stuck in it, we're basically stumped. We can't. We'll be able to get you out. Possibly.
That's it. That's where you live now. In the
yes,
lift.
Definitely. So they said, I think you need a new lift. So we had to go through all the rigmarole of what's the funding called, Alice?
The Disability Facilities Grant.
That's the one. Had to go through all of that, and then they sort of said, "Oh yes, you do need a lift because obviously I can't walk upstairs." And that famous line, it doesn't matter how many stairs there are, I still can't walk up them. And they installed a new one, which is lovely. It's fancy, and the door shuts automatically, and it's all nice. But yeah, we just thought it'd be a great topic for Disability Horizons TV, really.
Do you remember getting the original one fitted?
Yeah.
Because you were only little, weren't you?
I was 6. Yeah. So I do remember getting it. I don't really remember them installing it, but what I do remember is riding up and down in it constantly for 3 days flat. I was like, this is good. It's like Alton Towers. But yeah,
I imagine that must have been quite, like, you know, for your little 6-year-old self, quite a big sort of deal and big liberation. Because I guess your mum and parents been carrying you up and down the stairs.
Yeah, I got to the age where I was just too long and heavy to carry up the stairs. So somebody's just asked, does it have elevator music? No, it doesn't. It goes, it doesn't make it. I have to sing over the top of it to make it have elevator music. But when it comes down, so the one that we had before, when it went up and down, it was like so noisy. Whereas this one I have, when it comes down, because it's on hydraulics, it doesn't make a sound at all, which makes me very nervous. That is it. I'm like, is it working? Is it working? It's not making a noise. But yeah, going back to when I had it first installed, I got just too heavy and too long, really. So we had this new one put in, this new lift put in, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever, because it just meant I could go upstairs on my. And also, when people talk about having lifts and things in their home, what they tend to talk, well, what I sort of thought about when anybody said, oh, I've got a stair lift, so it was there. They couldn't really take their chair up, so they had to have one chair downstairs and one chair upstairs, so they could move around upstairs in a different wheelchair. Whereas this big thing takes me and my chair up at the same time. So it was quite exciting to be able to take my chair upstairs, kind of move around upstairs.
So I'm probably gonna offend you by saying this, but I've been thinking about the adaptations that we have as disabled people, and I was starting to wonder, like, what was the earliest, who was the first person to have some adaptations made to their house? And I remembered the story of Henry VIII, who towards the end of his life got so fat that he had a winter sunny system. And another redhead, so that's something else you guys have got in common. But I imagine his lift made quite a lot of noise, because it would have taken about 12 very strong men going pulling on the ropes to just get his Royal Highness up and down the stairs.
Have I ever told you about the time I went to France on a college trip, and some French firemen had to carry me up the stairs of the plane, and there was one at the top, one at the handle end, so my head end, and one at my feet end, and they went. I didn't know what they were saying, but they were going, "Un, deux, trois," as they lifted me. I was like, "Less of the please." It's fine. Stop over egging the pudding.
I'm doing this fire walk in a couple of weeks, and I still spoke to my family about it the other day and about where it is and stuff. And my mum said to me, "How are you getting home afterwards?" And I sort of went, "Well, I'm going to walk there." And then I thought, I'm not sure how I'm getting home afterwards, because I'm not sure I'm going to be fit to walk. No. And my mum said, "It's fine. We'll bring your aunt and uncle, and we'll have an arm and a leg each." And I was like, my concern is not. It's about the bit in the middle, because that's where all carry all my weight. Is that middle bit? That's the bit that's going to sag and drag along the floor.
I can't think of anything worse than a fire walk. Zec has just commented. He did one of these. I did two one night, and no, that's the wrong one I'm reading. I have done one of these at fireworks, and they're amazing. So there you go. Does it hurt? Does it burn your feet? Does it hurt?
I don't know. I haven't done it yet. So watch this space. I'll tell you in 2 weeks.
So Alice, I don't know if our viewers know, but you have a vision impairment. How are you going? Is somebody going to guide you over the coals?
It's terrible. I am doing this in a so it's for my local visually impaired charity, and I very much decided to do this on a whim, because I saw someone else was doing it, and I was like, I could do that. It just can't be that hard.
How do you have a drink?
Possibly. It was Bank Holiday Monday. So.
Yes, you've had a drink, hadn't you?
So I signed up to it, and then ever since then I've just been too busy going around telling people to donate for it, and because it's a fundraising thing, that's why I'm doing it. And I haven't really looked into it since. I'm kind of hoping I'll just turn up on the day and they'll be like, "Just do this," and It'll be fine.
I got visions of like your husband holding your hand over like on the safe bit of ground, going, "You're all right, it's fine. You're in a straight line. Go."
I fully expect my husband to be like, "It's a Saturday afternoon. You go do whatever you're doing on your own. I'm sitting here. Like, games aren't going to play themselves." Yeah.
Good luck with that. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. I will reshare
I'm wishing you good luck. You know, like
I'll reshare the fundraising thing for it if anybody would like to donate. That would be really awesome. Yes, I'm slightly doing it because I also know that Libby Clegg is doing it. She lives locally to me. She's a blind Paralympic runner, and a little bit of a girl crush on her because I've got a thing for Paralympians, and I'm sort of hoping to sort of jump my way desperately across the coals while going, "Libby, will you come on my podcast?"
Is this it? The lengths we go to, ladies, to get guests on. That is the effort we put in. We walk over hot coals to get guests.
Literally, yes.
That needs to be a tagline.
I was going to say, put that on a t-shirt.
That's going in the merch. Anyway, let's talk more about adaptations in the home, shall we? It made me think, Alice, have you got any like adaptations in your home to help you?
So the thing that I was thinking about in terms of what I have, a lot of my stuff's kind of resolved with lighting. So we're very lucky we have an electrician in the family, so we have lots of lights everywhere. My husband, who is not an electrician but seems to have a really impressive knowledge about how many lumens you need in a certain square footage to create an appropriate level of light to support, and I have kind of preferences in the color of light. So most people have like yellow lights in their house. I like a sort of warm white color. It's like more of a daylight color. And basically we just have an absolute shit ton of lamps to try and make the lighting spread as even as possible.
Yeah.
But I do have some other bits and pieces, funny little things, so that I don't have to kind of use my eyes to understand what I'm looking at, if that makes sense. So not in our current house, because we've got a gas hob in our current house, so I do not cook. But in our old house, we had an electric hob, and we had little sort of rubber bumps next to the knob and next to the like flat, because it was one of those big flat glass ones.
Yeah.
So I could work out where to put my pan without actually having to look. And there's some you can get some. I've got talking scales, which I use to measure the dog's food out on every morning and every evening. And so the dogs have now learned the sound of the scales turning on and the sound of the man that lives in the scales talking about how much something weighs. So whenever I use the scales for anything, you hear from all corners of the house dogs running desperately downstairs because
they know the voice. They know the voice of the scales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a bit like our dogs. They just know that. They just know. I think one of our dogs can actually tell time. Because it comes to 5 o'clock and they're like, oh. So there's been a comment here from Gavin. I'm wondering how much Alexa, we only have to say that very quick because she wakes herself up, is being used in homes to make them more accessible. Do we have?
You set her off.
She's just. Thank you for that. She's just talking to me. I use Alexa to turn lamps on and off that I can't reach. So I've got a lamp. Sorry, I didn't know that one. Thank you. Alexa, stop.
Go on, Nick.
So yeah, the light is controlled by her indoors. When I can't reach the lamp to turn it on and off. However,
the same. I use hours to turn lamps on all over. Yes. So for me, it's really brilliant because I can walk into a room and just tell her to turn the lights on. And although we haven't got her to control our sort of lights in the ceiling,
Mhm.
it at least gives me enough light to kind of then go, am I going to immediately stand on or fall over anything?
Yeah.
No. Okay, now let's find the light switch.
Does your voice
Smart
controlled
speaker.
machine, smart machine, does she sometimes have problems finding the light bulbs? Because I have an argument with her at least once a day where she goes, I can't find the light bulb. You can, you just turned it on 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. They're very temperamental. I actually had a conversation with somebody at work the other day who said she reckons hers is sexist because her husband never has any problems with it. But whenever she asks it to do something, it's, I'm sorry, I don't know that.
The amount of swear words that, and also because the name you have to use for your device is very similar to the name Alice. So when we are in production meetings for the podcast, suddenly she'll just pipe up telling me,
The smart speaker, not me. I pipe up quite a lot, but
yeah, the smart speaker. She just chips in. She's like the third member of the team in the meeting.
The least useful member of the team.
I think a lot of people watching, they are big fans of smart speakers. We've got Sharon, my husband, even linked up the Christmas lights to Google.
Yeah. My husband did that with our Christmas lights so that he liked to just walk into the living room, go, Alexa, Christmas, and the lights would come on.
Don't say it. She's just woken herself up again.
You never wear headphones when we do
this.
No, I should. Why it doesn't happen.
Whereas you could just shout it out with.
She's flashing at me in the corner at the minute. I'm watching her suspiciously.
But I also, I mean, I know you can. I think IKEA, you can even get like curtains that curtain rails that can close, which in reality sounds brilliant. But if you can't get to find the curtain pole, you're gonna have your curtains open all night, aren't you? Really?
Yeah.
But I mean, they are fantastic.
I do think it's going to be the way forward. I think for
absolutely.
accessible,
and I think if I lived on my own, I would definitely have them in every single room.
I wonder if there's anybody out there who's starting to, as part of the disability facilities grants, say, what would actually be really helpful for me would be having something is having a smart speaker. Because I mean, I know you can get smart speakers for 20 quid these days. They're not hugely expensive.
They're not massively expensive, are they?
No, but you do once you add in the lamps and you add in the gadgets for the curtains, and you can get them to do stuff like, I'm sure there's one you can hook into your front door lock, so it locks your door for you.
Wow. You feel like Iron Man, don't you? Lizzie Arden, who's tuned in, she's got electric blinds. Closing the curtains would be great. That's Sharon. A friend of mine called their Alexa Yoda. So I think we ought to change our Alexa's names to something we don't normally say out loud very often. Maybe, I don't know.
I think, unfortunately, being married to a Star Wars fan, Yoda is probably a word that gets said more often than you would expect in my home. So.
And I also use my Alexa just purely to have the radio on, and listen to podcasts and things. So I don't have to faff about with wires and headphones and things in bed. I can just have the radio on quietly. Also, I don't know if any of you know, but if you whisper at Alexa, she she whispers back, which is a bit freaky. I think it's a bit frightening.
I bet there's all sorts of really cool things that you will be able to do with smart home systems. Eventually.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you can hook your telly up to them as well, can't you?
Our TV's hooked up to ours. Because I'm always struggling to find the remote constantly, because despite being with a blind woman for nearly 12 years, my husband cannot grasp putting the remote back on the TV stand when he's done.
Yeah.
Not that that's a conversation we have on a weekly basis.
I'm like a therapist.
But I ask her to turn the TV on, and then I can ask her to open Netflix or Disney Plus.
Yeah, you see,
it works 75% of the time.
Yeah. Well, the 75% is better than none of the time. Zec has also mentioned Ring doorbells.
Yeah.
They also link to the TV as well. We don't have a Ring doorbell. However, I do feel like they would be a very good idea, because the amount of times I have to rush to get to the door before they clear off is an absolute nightmare. If I'm in the house on my own and then they knock at the door, our house, we've had an extension, so it's all like super duper for me, but I have to like run, if you know what I mean, to the front door, and often I'm like, no, come back, it's my parcel, I've been waiting for that. So yeah, having a Ring doorbell would be very helpful, because you can also look at them on your phone as well when you're like away. So
yeah, they're very cool. I quite often can't see, like if it's really bright out, I open my front door, could be anybody standing there. And the Amazon guy has a tendency to just put the parcel down and leave. So by the time I've got downstairs, got all the dogs out of the way, because the dogs obviously assume it's for them, the doorbell.
Yeah, of course.
Because they frequently have visitors. You get down, and I open, there's nobody there. And it always takes me at least 2 goes to go, there's no one here. So I shut the door and walk away, and then I go, oh, I didn't look to see if there was anything on the floor, because I don't see low down. So yeah, it's
Sharon says she's also sick of missing deliveries, despite having a sticker on the window that says, please allow for more time. I would have one of those stickers, but I don't know how, like Sharon says, I don't know how often these people read.
No.
I had a very friendly postman called Gary, who used to knock on the window and just put his thumb up to say there's a parcel outside, when you can get to it. I've left it on the floor, nice. Which was really nice of him. But he doesn't do our round anymore, so we have some very sulky postmen. Sometimes I'm like, do you mind? Sorry,
we have a very friendly DHL man named Barry, who also delivers to the place where I get my eyelashes done. I've seen him in there a couple of times, and the dogs recognize him.
Oh,
and he's the one who brings the huge 50-kilo boxes of dog food. So they see him out doing deliveries elsewhere. They're very excited.
Oh, dog food man. Sounds like a really crap superhero, doesn't it? Dog food man.
Just whenever you see him, 50 kilos of kibble appear.
We're talking about the stickers for the window. Apparently Sticker Man sells them, so those stickers for the window, if you're looking for them, Sticker Man sells them if you're interested, or you could just write your own on a passive aggressive post-it note. that makes you feel better. So but I've also, because we've had an extension over the years, we've sort of extended our house, so it's more adapted to me. So it's not completely, we've found a nice balance between me being able to do some things and also being the right height for non-disabled people. So that
I was going to say, because you're the only wheelchair user in your house, so I imagine your mum would have bad back if she was having to bend down for your counters and stuff. That is the mess.
So in our kitchen downstairs, we've got a lowered countertop, so I can at least do like a chopping of vegetables if I'm asked to, although I'm never asked to because I'm quite slow. But we've got a lowered countertop, and we've got 2 kettles. So I've got one my side and Mum's got one her side, so that we can both make. In the morning, I'm like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" She's like, "No, I'll make you one." I'm like, "No, I'll do it. No,
it's a race."
So we've got that. We've got the lift, obviously, and then I've got a closet toilet, which basically, if anybody tries to take off me, I will bite them and run over their ankles, because that is the one piece of equipment, I think, other than my lift, that has given me so much more independence, because it means I can sort of look after my personal hygiene myself without having to ask anybody to help out. It's something that everybody who I knew for the first like 2 weeks I had it installed, they were like, "Can I have a go on your toilet? Can I have a go on your toilet?" Which was a bit weird. But yeah, it's just like these tiny little things. But I think that quite a lot of the non-disabled community can often like look at our gadgets that we've got in our home and go, "Oh, you know, they get all these free gadgets." But it's not it's not because we want them. Do you know what I mean? We need them to sort of function on a day-to-day.
Yeah, I was chatting to my brother about this, who is non-disabled, the other day, and he said, "God, all the free stuff you get, and all you need to have is a life-changing disability." It's like, yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And also, as well, the process of getting a disabled facilities grant can often be quite long-winded, and the questions they ask are quite personal. So I can remember the first sort of round the questioning that I got was how much money does Lucy earn, and how much money does her husband earn? And I said, I haven't got a husband, unless you're telling me something I don't know. Because obviously, like, they have to factor in your partner's wage as well. And
I mean, the whole thing is, I do understand in principle why the local authority have got to put all of these checks and balances in place, but it's so difficult, you know, that I know Lucy and I know somebody who wants to have some work done to her property, and the council have said, you know, they'll only do it if she'll agree to stay in the property for 5 years, but actually she doesn't want to be in that property long term because it's not accessible, and even having work done to it, it will never be really what she wants from a properly accessible house.
mm-hmm.
So, you know, what's the answer there? That she stays in a temporarily inaccessible house until she can move somewhere better, or she stays in a house she doesn't really want to be in because it's going to be moderately accessible, but she has to stay in there longer than she wants to.
Yeah,
it's a real catch-22. And again, you know, I understand why the local authorities say these things to you, because, you know, you can have the council might be spending, you know, £50,000 on your house. That's a lot of money. They're not, you know, especially if you own your own home. If it's council properties, it's like a different story. If you own your own home, they're spending 50 grand on adapting it for you. They're not going to see that money if you sell your house and move.
No. And Zec says we private rent, so can't guarantee 5 years, so can't get a grant. So, you know, what do people who rent do that kind of thing? It's I mean, and they're intrusive questions, and it's almost like, you know, and then they ask questions like, well, does she need this lift? Well, yeah, well, I've been using one for the last 28 years, and, you know, my disability won't get any better. And then when they realize, oh yeah, it's just a like-for-like replacement, so, yeah, that's fine then. But you feel on edge all the time, and having to justify like why you need it all the time, and that can sometimes be very exhausting. You know, going through finances and things. You think, you know, I can understand why they do it, obviously, but, you know, when you know that you haven't got that money and they're going, yeah, but can we just have a look anyway? I mean, I understand why they have to look, to double check these things, but it doesn't make you feel very nice, because you feel like a criminal.
Well, and especially when, you know, what you're doing is asking for something to just help you live in your house.
Yeah,
it's a sad system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I used to work with somebody who she was an older lady. She had her own ramp put in. Her house was on a hill, so the pavement at the end of her garden was noticeably like sort of 4 feet lower than her front door. And so she'd had this ramp fitted, but because she paid for it herself, and because it didn't follow council guidelines, because she just paid a builder to do it themselves.
Mhm.
When she was then having problems, the council couldn't come out and do anything to it because they hadn't fitted it. It didn't fit within their guidelines. So they were like, the only thing that we would do in this situation is take the whole thing out and refit it. But then she spent 15 grand on a ramp that, she's basically thrown her money away. It's a really difficult, and there's not enough social housing being built in general, but certainly not enough accessible social housing being built. That bungalows are like gold dust.
Well, you don't see them anymore, do you? Because it's not fashionable. Building a bungalow is not fashionable. The ones that you do see, they were built in like the 60s, 70s, and they're very I know somebody that's completely like renovated a bungalow to make it look, to make adapted it for her, and then like she's ripped the cladding off the outside because the cladding was making her house look really old fashioned. So she's ripped all the
I think in terms of social housing, they have to build a certain percentage of bungalows and accessible housing, but because of our aging population, those bungalows are disappearing very quickly. My mother-in-law's actually just moved into a really nice maisonette, so she's on the ground floor, and that's really nice and accessible on the ground floor, but then obviously you only get one of those and then the rest of it's upstairs. So
it's only when and also what I will say is those 3 days I was away in the Premier Inn, everybody was like, oh, how lovely, you get to stay in the Premier Inn. Actually, we were going there to sleep, getting up in the morning, having a shower, coming home again. And then I was coming home into just to be able to sit in one room downstairs because I couldn't move around the house. The builders were everywhere. And by day 2, I was like, I'm at the end of my. I think I text you at one point. It's like, I don't think I could. Like, this is horrific. And you once that lift was taken away from me, you really, really do realise that subscribing to the social model of disability, that it's not me that's disabled, it's my surroundings. I was like, this is a stark reminder that if anything was to happen to my house, where I couldn't, move around and things like that, it would it affected me. Those 3 days, I was being a drama queen, if I'm honest, and it affected my mental state so much because it was like you go home and you sat in one room and you see these. You just feel for people that are in that situations where their houses aren't suitable for their needs. I'm very lucky. It was only 3 days, and I'm very dramatic. But yeah, it just really brought it home to me that without that lift and the equipment I've got in my house, I wouldn't be able to do half. And the builders went with half an hour. I was upstairs pootling about, putting washing away, doing just like what I call quote unquote normal.
I was going to say just doing your life again.
Yeah, it's just such a relief. And
I think
I do feel like Iron Man around my house, to be honest. Toilets that sort me out and lifts and all sorts. It's I do feel like Iron Man.
I think it's I worked in social care for quite a while, and I think that that the things that you see out there that are available, and I think that there is a hope and an intention and a willingness from most people within social services to try and provide things to make people's homes as accessible as possible. But I think there's so many stumbling blocks, particularly when it comes to funding and availability. And I think listening to what you're saying about not being able to get around your house and that realization of how for you the difference of just actually one piece of equipment makes to your ability to just live in your home. I think it's really quite. I guess I'm a bit sort of lost for words, really, thinking about how there are people out there that are on those waiting lists and stuff that have been stuck in, not even being able to go and stay in a Premier Inn.
No, I know. I'm extremely lucky to be in the position I am, where I can go and stop in a Premier Inn down the road. But at the same, it's and my heart goes. You see people, don't you, sometimes on the they've used the news as a last resort to try and get some movement with the council because they've just at loggerheads, and then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, the council are there sorting out their bathroom, and because yourself, like if you don't feel clean or ready, presentable almost, being able to do simple things like have a shower, do that independently is great, but even be able to get in a shower and have a shower whilst being assisted, that's still a big thing. Being able to sleep in a bed that's comfortable or things like that, it does put it into perspective. This is what I was thinking about last week. It does put into perspective that having that your basic needs met at home, that's the best way to start the day, isn't it, really?
It's kind of the basics of being human, and I guess basic human rights, isn't it? Being able to be in your own home and
feel comfortable.
And it's so difficult because balancing that, meeting that need with the demand and the cost in terms of what the local authority have to spend, the resources they've got. It's I do understand very much why they're so tight-fisted with it, why they make people jump through so many hoops. But I also it's terrible particularly when there are people out there who aren't as privileged as you and I to have supportive family and steady finances, who can't necessarily fit within the system, who can't answer the forms easily, who can't and who can't let you go and stay in a Premier Inn. It's a sad state of affairs, and this is a bit of a downer conversation. So
break it up a bit. Do you want to find which angle to go to? I mean, it's an important point to make, isn't it? Really, that we both recognise that we are very in a very privileged position to be where we are, and whilst things are difficult in the very, very short term, it does obviously make you realise how lucky we are to be able to have a nice home that has been adapted for our needs. And that's something I just wanted to mention. I didn't want to sit here moaning about my 3 nights stay in the Premier Inn, because I mean, even though I did miss out on breakfast, the Premier Inn was perfectly fine. Thank you very much.
And you only missed out on the breakfast because your mum wouldn't let you stay.
Yeah, my mum wasn't letting anybody sleep in. She was like, "No, come on, we're out." I think morning 3, we were out at like 5:30, and I'm
Jesus Christ,
this is not helpful. Please, gonna go back to bed. So we didn't have any Premier Inn breakfast.
No wonder you were feeling so stressed out, because you weren't getting
probably because of lack of sleep.
Yeah,
that's what happens. Lack of sleep, I get dramatic. Maybe, I don't know.
Do we have any questions or anything coming?
Yeah, has anybody got any questions who may be listening to us today?
Or if we put everyone off and they've all gone,
we just talk their ears off. We'll just wait a second and see if anybody drops any. Is the solution just to higher taxes, or is it that more just needs to be done? That's from Gavin.
I think, Gavin, that the solution is partly higher taxes, and I think it's partly a review of how our taxes are spent. I think that certain government parties, governmental parties, will choose to spend their money in certain ways. Personally, were I Queen of the World, I would be charging.
I'll be your Queen of the World.
I would be taxing oil companies and anybody earning over £1 million a year through the arsehole right now, so that I could try and put some more money back into our most poverty-stricken communities. But that's me, and I'm not Boris. So
there's a comment here from Sharon. Sorry, I nearly called you Sarah. How do you go about working out what aids and adaptations are available and not knowing and knowing what might help you?
So I think one of the things that actually and again, I suppose it really depends on where you are and who you get allocated to. But I've met some brilliant occupational therapists in the past who, will come out and will talk to you about what's out there. I know that when we moved into our first house, my husband and I moved out of my mum's, the local charity, the one I'm actually doing this fire walk for, they came out and they did an assessment around my house and said, well, these are things you could do. These are changes. These are things that we could put in place for you. These are ideas that if you're, you could fund for yourself. So, I think there are
having people like an occupational therapist or a physiotherapist go, why are you doing it like that? Have you tried this? Is really helpful because they're on the outside. My physiotherapist that I go and see very occasionally, when I would get referred for some, they often look at me like, why are you doing transfers like that? And then they show me an easy way. I'm like, oh my God, you've saved my life! Like all of this time I've been struggling. It's really, I think having somebody on the outside going, okay, this is a quick fix we can do right now, like is really helpful. Because I think as well, family members don't often see it because it's just the way you've always done it.
I was going to say, and I think when you're sort of living in that bubble as well, you don't necessarily see it. I think that and also, I mean, talking to other people who have perhaps got similar issues and kind of difficulties to you, because you never know what like hacks people have come up with that you've not heard of. A friend of mine was just like, why are you struggling to put your makeup on in a mirror? I just use my iPad, and you just flip this, and then you can zoom in, it's backlit. And I was just like, changed my life. Now I do not look like a panda every day.
You never look like a panda, Alice. You do it very, very well. A Facebook user says, should some housing stock be set aside for disabled people only? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think that there should certainly be more houses built that are accessible or sort of have the versatility to be made accessible.
Yeah. Mik says homes need to be built and easily adapted so that anyone can stay in their home if they get old or become disabled. It should be part of the planning regulations. Absolutely.
That's definitely true. And that's the thing about my mother-in-law's new place is that she moved in and said, oh, it's a council house. She said, I'd really like a bath. And they said to her, you are nearly 60. We are not putting a bath in so that in 5 years' time, she's got bad back, we can take your bath out because you can't get into it anymore.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, I get it. She was cross about it. But also, she's got a very nice walk-in shower with a seat in it. And if the place doesn't have the space for them to put a hoist or anything in or a bath seat in there for her. No. So, I can understand the council being unwilling to spend 50 grand on refitting her bathroom when it's not going to be suitable.
And if she goes somewhere, can she go somewhere if she wants a bath though?
She's always welcome here. She's never been to our house, but that's perhaps a different story and somewhat of a dark insight into our family dynamic.
Obviously, another Facebook user here says they have the same issue when looking for cottages and holiday lets. Don't get me started on holiday lets, and because you are completely anxious until you get there that the bathroom is going to be all right, the bed is going to be all right, that everything is going to be able to meet your needs for a weekend away. And if it's not, there's nothing you can do. You have to just struggle with it.
I need to think there must be somebody out there who could make money hand over fist making wheelchair accessible holiday cottages.
Yeah. And they, as Zec has just said, an accessible holiday is a fortune. It is, you have to like sell a kidney to go on holiday to Cornwall if you're in a wheelchair. Like, have my kidney and my firstborn.
For 2 weeks in St Ives.
Yes, please. I'll have a pasty. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting issue, I think, disability at home. We're nearly we're just over 45 minutes. So is there anything else you want to say, Alice, before we round off about disability in the home, or accessible homes, we should say?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing I would say is come and listen to our podcast. It's excellent.
We do say so ourselves.
Yeah, we've had Mik on the show. So for fans of Disability Horizons, regular watchers, you'll know, obviously, Mik Scarlett. And we have, Zec and Mik have threatened to come and take over the podcast, knowing that we've taken over Disability Horizons this week. So watch out for that. We're really excited. We've got a LGBTQ Pride series coming out in June, because June is Pride Month. So that's going to be awesome. We're going to have an episode every week for 5 weeks with a guest who identifies as both disabled or chronically ill and LGBTQ. So that's going to be awesome. And for anybody who needs it, we have transcripts for every episode on our website.
Well done, Alice. Expertly done. Well done. Can you tell we've done that before, ladies and gents? We do it in our sleep. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to this Disability Horizons. Zec and Mik will be back in 2 weeks' time, I believe. I hope that's right.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you soon.